The audience gets to participate in a production. It's all happening at the Lydia Mendelson Theater at the University of Michigan in the Michigan League building, and it's an Ann Arbor Civic Theater production. The musical, The Mystery of Edwin Drood.
Ooh, Drood.
Ron Homan is back with us, an extraordinary director directing this, and I guess you designed it as well?
Designed it as well, yeah. A couple other people help build things, and we have a train on stage. Yeah, there's some cool stuff here. Yeah.
But it's going to be so much fun because the audience gets to decide. Also here, Jared Hoffert, he plays chairman of the music hall. Nice to have you back with us.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having us.
Veteran of acting for these productions. So this is really based on a Charles Dickens story that never got finished?
Absolutely. Charles Dickens, back at that period in time, 1800s in England, writers would serialize their books, so they would release a chapter at a time to your local newspaper, your local magazine that everybody read.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then they would eventually pull them together into a book and publish it afterwards.
Isn't that kind of anticlimactic at that point?
Well, it's anticlimactic.
Everyone has read it?
Kind of, yeah, but, people like to reread it anyway because they had it in their, grimy papers that the print would come off and all that kind of stuff. And imagine being a fan of Grisham, for example, and reading his most recent mystery novel, and suddenly he has the gall to die, and you don't get the ending, and that's exactly what happened with this book.
What did they do back then when that happened?
They put a little obituary in the paper, and that was it. And literally,
no one finished it?
No. Over the years, some writers have tried to finish it, but really, there's no ending. So if you buy this book, it literally ends where he ended it, and there's no ending.
Well, how much more should it have gone? Do you know?
Oh, probably the whole ending. You never get to the mystery.
How close? You don't.
No.
How close is it? Was it half done? 3/4 done?
It was about 3/4 done.
3/4 done.
And he introduces all the characters. He gets his plot lines going. He gets everything started. He develops these relationships between people. Drood disappears, and all these different characters are starting to talk about what the heck happened. Who might have done it. These detectives suddenly appear, and then the book ends. So the audience in this particular show gets to vote on who is the detective, who murdered him, who are the lovers at the end of the show. I mean, they're an integral part of this production.
How fun and different every single time.
Yes. Every single time.
You could go to this every production and see something different.
Absolutely. There are 8 murder suspects. There are 5 different detective folks. There are, countless permutations of lovers at the end. There's literally 46 different endings you can have.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. The Ann Arbor Civic Theater production of The Mystery of Edwin Drood, June 1st through 4th, Thursday 7:30, Friday and Saturday at 8, and Sunday at 2. And again, this is at the Lydia Mendelson, which is just a beautiful theater. I love that theater. Jared, your role in this as chairman of the music hall, what do you do? Why is the music hall so important?
Well, the Music Hall Royale is a traveling band of actors in Victorian England. So all of our roles as real actors, we're playing 2 roles. We're playing the actor in the Music Hall Royale, and then we're playing the character in The Mystery of Edwin Drood on top of that.
Oh.
So the chairman is basically running the show. He is introducing what's going on. He is introducing the other actors. He gets forced into having to play a part in the show himself, and then he runs the vote at the end. So I'm addressing the audience directly. As Ron said, we can have a different show every night with very many permutations, and even the other actors on stage. We don't know what's going to happen. Everybody has to be ready for whatever happens that night.
Ad-libbing.
Oh, yeah.
well, it's all scripted ad-libbing. Talk about memorizing.
Yeah,
what it is.
Lord,
some people have to memorize 8 different endings.
But he has to play off the audience.
He does.
So how does he do that then?
It's partly scripted and partly improv based on what you get.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You can put a few throw-ins in there, but there is a ton of memorization on this character specifically. It's one of the most challenging ones I've ever had to memorize.
All right, so these are not actors in the audience who are playing it.
No.
These are the audience patrons who have come to see this production who get to decide.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've got an audience of how many there?
700.
700 people. How on earth are you corralling that into figure it out.
It's a fun process, and in fact, we've rehearsed it. The cast, the ensemble, actually go out into the audience and they take a tally, and they sit there and go, "How many people are voting for number one?" and write it down. How many people are voting for number two? And they write it down. At other points, people raise hands. Other points, people applaud and cheer to see who their favorites are. So there's 3 separate votes that get taken, and they're each done slightly differently.
Has anyone ever figured out over all these years what Dickens' intention was?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
How does one know? Notes? Did he leave notes?
His son knew.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and his son really didn't let anything out, but over the years, people have written like doctoral dissertations and things on what had happened. Yeah, and I don't want to give it away.
You don't have to. That's
can't influence the vote here.
Yeah. I think it's more fun not to know.
I think, and it's really fun to read through that stuff after you've seen the show.
Yeah.
One of my hopes is that people actually read the novella, because it's actually very quirky and funny. Above and beyond this quirky show, the book is actually very mysterious and funny. But then you do a little bit of Googling and start looking up what the intended ending was, and there's some fascinating stuff out there.
Edwin Drood is not who you expect Edwin Drood to be?
Well, Edwin Drood is, in the particular production, is played by a male impersonator, so that it's a female playing the part, Vanessa Banister, and she's fantastic in it. An actress in the Music Hall Royale who is a impersonator. A part of this show is recreating English music hall back in the late 1800s. It's sort of like what Americans would call vaudeville in the early 1900s here. People would come to the theater, they would buy their beers, they would drink, they would gossip, they would get all their recent news. They would probably know 2/3 of the people in the theater. And this troupe of traveling players has suddenly arrived, and they're doing this production. So it very much feels like you're in an English music hall. And male impersonation was very, very popular.
How far back does this musical go?
The story itself takes place in the 1870s, and it's set in 1892 as far as the audience point of view in the theater.
But when did this actually come to a production?
1985. It was originally done in Central Park. It was a Joseph Papp New York Shakespeare Festival, free show in the park.
Strange it took all those years.
It did. Well, and I don't think people knew what to make of this material. And then Rupert Holmes made it his life's work to do this. Rupert Holmes, who wrote the Pina Colada song, which people might know.
Wait, this is the same Rupert Holmes?
It's the same Rupert Holmes.
Oh, I had no idea.
Pina Coladas.
Are you kidding? I love that song.
Yes. Well, and this music is very peppy like that. It's very upbeat. And, this was like he loved this material.
I didn't know he did that.
Yeah. And it's one of the very, very rare musicals. Oliver's one that comes to mind, where one person wrote the book, the lyrics, and the script for it.
He did all of that?
Yeah, I did all of it.
Wait a minute. Dean, did you know that Rupert Holmes from the Pina Colada song had done this musical?
No.
I had no idea. 1985.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so in 1985, it won a slew of Tony Awards, including Best Musical. Then it was revived in 2013 with a group of Broadway superstars in the show, and kept getting extended. And then, so there was this great revival of it as well. But at the time, if you sort of put yourself back to 1985, the British invasion really hadn't hit yet. We had Cats that had just opened in 1982, 1983. And Phantom had not opened, Les Mis had not opened, Miss Saigon had not opened, these big giant blockbusters had not opened. This was a big American blockbuster, and it started in Central Park for free. So thousands and thousands of people had already seen this show before it moved indoors into a theater.
Do you think the name should be different, though? Do you think more people would gravitate to it? Drood is just such a, it's not a glamorous word.
That's a topic that's come up before. In fact, for a while, Tams Whitmark, who licenses the show, changed the name of the show to Drood instead of Mystery of Edwin Drood.
Just Drood.
Just Drood.
Now, I get that.
Yeah.
And it seems to speak to our times of how we label things.
Yeah, but when you really take a look at it, it really is the mystery of
Edwin Drood. Because you're solving the mystery. The audience gets to solve it each time. How fascinating. So I'm really curious, though, Jared, how you're able to discern. Yes, okay, you send out members of the ensemble into the audience, but you're asking the audience questions, right?
Oh, yeah. As Ron mentioned, there's at least 3 votes that go on for various reasons, and they're done differently. 2 of those votes actually are on me to decide based on the applause or hooting and hollering that comes from the audience. If there's a tie, I have a way to break that tie, but we'll leave that for if and when it happens.
It's another mystery.
So once you find out what the audience, how they think this thing should end, do you play that out on stage?
Yes. Two of the votes happen immediately. We announce who the winners of the votes are right there.
Okay.
But one of the votes where people are actually tallying in the audience and taking that time, there's a little misdirection so that once we restart the play, if you will, the moment where the killer is announced, one character knows who that killer is because they have to announce it. And then it's a surprise to everybody on stage. So every actor has to be ready for possibly being picked.
So not only are you going kind of outside the box with this production, but the actors on stage as well are playing into this.
They are.
I envisioned it at first that you take a vote and it ends. Yeah. I didn't realize that. Oh my goodness!
Oh no! They have to finish the story as part of the play.
Every single one has got a memorized ending, and they go out there and they sing a song. They have 4 seconds to prep and do it.
Gosh.
You know?
It's 2-bar intro and go.
Wow!
Yeah. So the murder could be completely different every single night.
Wow! How fun is
probably
this?
will, because we got a zany cast of characters, and they actually go out in the audience and they lobby. So before the show and intermission, they'll be out there talking to the audience. Vote for me. I'm going to be playing this part, and please vote for me.
This takes those whole murder mystery dinners to a whole new level.
Oh, it does. It does.
It's called The Mystery of Edwin Drood, and it's being performed through an Ann Arbor Civic Theater production. We're talking with Ron Baumanis. He is the director, and also with us today is Jared Hoffert, who is the chairman of the music hall. Lydia Mendelsohn Theater, again, June 1st through the 4th. And for tickets and other information, you can go online to a2ct.org. That's A2ct.org. I'll give a phone number in just a moment. Tickets, all price ranges?
Yeah, there's a range of prices depending on, ages and other things and nights. It's different on different nights.
Okay. And there's just something, I don't know, I love the Lydia. I don't know what it's like to perform in, but it's just it harkens back to a whole different day.
It's a music box,
It is.
And the ironic thing is it was really built in the Victorian era, so it kind of feels very accurate to the show. And the show takes place in a music hall, and we have footlights and the whole thing, and it feels like you're walking into a music hall because it really was built at that time.
Yeah. And the stage you can see the stage from everywhere.
From everywhere.
Oh,
yeah.
It's a beautifully intimate 700-seat house.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah, we also have a 10-piece orchestra. They sound fantastic in there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and the whole show is orchestrated with this sort of interesting British sound to it. Sort of even sounds like music hall when you're listening to it. It's a brilliant show, and you can see why it won all these awards.
Tell me about the costuming.
Oh, Molly Borneman did the costumes. They're just gorgeous. They've got the bustles, and we've got the top hats, and it's a beautiful look to this show. We had a handful of invited guests that were basically theater people last night, and first they had a blast, and second, the comment we heard the most was that the sets and the costumes were just amazing.
Oh, beautiful. Again, a2ct.org. You can get your tickets online or call 734-971-2228, 971-2228. Tickets can also be purchased at the door June 1st through the 4th. You had 7:30 on the 1st, on the 2nd, and the 3rd, and the 3rd's 8 o'clock, actually. That's Saturday.
Yes.
And then June 4th, 2 o'clock matinee.
Yes.
All right. We're going to be replaying this interview this weekend, too. So if people are listening to this and some of these have gone by, that's why. But Lydia Mendelsohn Theater through the University of Michigan with the Ann Arbor Civic Theater. And there's a mysterious guest appearance.
There is a mysterious guest appearance. We're not going to give it away.
What is the point of the mysterious guest appearance?
Oh, a laugh. This show is very, very fun. It's really hilarious. And if the audience does not leave fully entertained, we've done something wrong. And I know that for some audience members, they don't like that breaking of the fourth wall. They like to sit in the back, and they don't want people to bother them. And I think one of the brilliant things about this show is that even those folks kind of go along with the flow of it, and they enjoy it. And then there's all these surprises thrown in that make you laugh at what's happening.
All right. It's going to be a lot of fun. The audience votes for the murderer. Every night it's different. Dickens died while writing the book, and there is no definitive ending. That in itself is just so it's just so.
It's our hook.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and I had never heard about this before.
Yeah.
Was he working on anything else at the time that was left hanging? Do you know?
Just some odds and ends, but nothing that had been published. This was his biggie that he was publishing at the time.
Well, and the fact that these were published in newspapers, just one chapter at a time.
Yes.
So people had read it.
Well, and it was it's a fascinating concept because people are much more literate back then. They really read, and because now we have all this other entertainment and movies and things like that. So probably a more apt description is imagine going to see Guardians of the Galaxy and the last two reels not being there.
You're right.
You set up all the characters, you set up this fun story, then what? And people would talk about it. So you would read the chapter, you'd go to your local pub, have a drink, and say, hey, by the way, what do you think about Dickens' new thing? They called him Ned back then. So what do you think about his, Ned's new thing?
Ned?
Yeah, I don't know why, but that's one of his nicknames.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm learning all sorts of things from you today.
Ned and Boz was another one, because he often initialed stuff B-O-Z.
Oh, really?
There's actually a character in the show with that.
Wow.
Name. And so you'd be talking about it just like you do about the movies, and people are like, "Oh, who do you think it is? Who's suddenly nothing."
Wow. And it's written by Rupert Holmes. That just blows me away.
Yeah.
Is he still around?
He is, and he's done some movie scoring and written some other things and some books and things. And again, he's had a fascinating life. And if you look up like his website, you can see some of the cool stuff he's done as well.
And I just thought it was the Pina Colada song.
That's how most Americans know him, as the Pina Colada song guy.
Hey, great talking with you guys. Thank you so much. Wish you well on stage, and just another fabulous production from Ron Baumanis and the gang with the Ann Arbor Civic Theater, June 1st through the 4th. And our thanks also to Jared Hoffert. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Lucianne.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think, who would I want to have done it? More coming up on Ann Arbor's Talk Station, 1290
People who can